But for the average Nigerian worker in some of these 36 states, whether or not he or she can be guaranteed of the salary of next month and be able to put food on the table is a big question. Let's bring in an expert to help give some perspectives to these matters. Mr. Seun Onigbinde joins us from Washington, D.C. He's the co-founder of Budget. Thank you so much, Mr. Onigbinde, for your time. And let's begin the conversation first and foremost. Because this is a financial and economic issues, and some of our viewers tonight that are watching may not have a very good grasp of the mathematics, the economics, and the issue of the finances. But break it down for us. Are some of the states in trouble? Are they gradually tending towards insolvency? How bad are things?
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Let me say, we have a state of state report, and we always put it out there on an annual basis where we review the financial status of states. And I think our last report, we highlighted 11 states that could be in trouble. And we should also not forget that the federal government have provided some form of support, either by loans or by payment of the Paris Club in the previous years. And there's been a gentleman agreement that I'm aware of around 650 billion this year, that fact. And if states receive this amount of money on the monthly basis, they would be fine, and they will be able to meet all their bills. What looks that would threatening that has been the first subsidy payments. There's been a report recently, even though it's unconfirmed, that daily subsidy payments is around $7 billion, which will bring us somewhere around 210 billion in a month. But that also has to be reviewed. There are challenges that will be the biggest impact on the FACT distribution. And we can see that states are beginning to have issues with NNPC. Recently, NNPC said that it will not meet its own component of revenue to FACT just because it would defray our cost from a subsidy cost from FACT payments, due to FACT. So that's a real challenge. If FACT gets shortened by 100 to 150 billion naira, as we would see maybe at the end of this month, then we would know that states might be in significant trouble going forward.
So let's look at, in that your state of states report, first and foremost is the ability of states to meet their recurring obligations. And if you look at it there, the first on the state, on the list of the states, the total revenue and the recurrent expenditure, and on the far right is surplus or deficit. There's some states who are, that are in blue, some are in light blue, shade up color of blue, and some are in deeper color of blue. Those are perhaps who are having a better situation. But there are some states, about 10 or so of them, that are clearly in red. Although the NNPC says that it is not in financial crisis, but has voiced its inability to contribute to the Federation account allocation in May, do you see this trend continue? And if it does, what is your biggest fear for the purse of the state governments?
NNPC is doing the right thing because for years, NNPC has been baking in those losses. It's been taking the can on behalf of the Federation. Now NNPC wants to run like a proper state oil company, saying that its cost of operation, which the subsidy is part of it, would be paid in full by the federal government. And now that leads to a significant challenge because that would have impact on the FACT distribution across board. The federal government can still get some support from the CBN to meet its own shortfalls. State governments do not have that luxury. And so, and it's been proven that state governments get into more distress when oil prices go low. Now, oil prices are up. And which also are supposed to mean that state government are supposed to get more. But the problem is also we are paying subsidies. So it's a double whammy. It's a double jeopardy situation. NNPC is doing the right thing by taking its cost. We just have to find a way that this whole FACT distribution or revenue distribution is grossly unsustainable. As long as it's anchored on oil, a very volatile commodity, that we are also that the downstream price is not optimized, that it's been subsidized, will continuously face this challenge as we go along the way. This will, and whatever your question is that what we have put on that chart, I mean, those numbers will have changed because a lot of numbers that guided the ability to the state to meet expenditure were in 2018, 2019 numbers. Those numbers will have significantly changed now. But those will show that's like a stress test to show that if the states continue on those bloated and recurrent expenditure, they will continuously face challenges to even pay salaries or even run the apparatus of government. So it's a way to be able to build the viability or the sustainability of state across board.
So one area that experts will say that if this federal allocation is not coming and is not as much as it should be, when I was having a conversation with you before the program, you said, well, things may not be as bad in the coming months. It will drop, but federal allocation may not be as bad as one would think. Things might improve, but that's good news. But it does look like some states are already jittery. They're already coming out. Ekiti State has voiced out. Kaduna State is taking action. Zamfara State is talking. And these are major problems. If you look at your report and the internally generated revenue on the chart that you released, and that report shows how states have improved. This is another stream of income for them. Some states spend close to 70% of their revenue to pay salaries, which is clear that they may need to borrow to cover payroll. Do they have options outside owing workers or laying them off?
What we might see might be, I mean, everybody was going to take a strategy. I remember Oshuma had to do a bit of modulation where salaries payments were graduated. Kaduna, we learned recently, had to right size some of his workers. We have some states that might have to just owe and just wait it out. So I think every state will determine the plan and we also don't forget that there's a political economy to this, considering that we are moving towards the 2023 election. So state governments or governors will have to be careful with how they take those decisions, especially those who are up for a second term. But mostly what you would say is that state governments just have to be much more productive. IGR is a big opportunity, but most states in Nigeria, I mean, IGR is less than 50 billion naira. I mean, apart from Delta, Rivers, Ogun, possibly Lagos also. Most states IGR, I mean, are less than 50 billion naira, and that has to significantly change. You can't have a state doing an IGR less than 2.5 billion naira a month, and you also want to significant. You have spending almost 80 billion naira on current expenditure. It just doesn't work that way. Because the funds that you receive for the federal government should be much more targeted and long-term and sustainable and like capital projects and less on consumption like the current part. But we have seen that we have not emphasized productivity in Nigeria. We've only put our head distribution. So we do more of distribution than productivity. And that's why the support that the federal government gives the state has to be less about just payment of salaries or augmenting their recurrent expenditure shortfall. The federal government needs a grand plan to support states to be productive. If states are going to be engine of exports, if states are going to be also build new good goals, this is the time for the federal government through the CBN possibly to find a way to partner with states. And we're not talking about maybe just another agricultural scheme. Federal government must be able to sit down with states and ask, would you take technology? Would you take light manufacturing? Would you take, which kind of agriculture do you want to play with?
But so apologies, Mr. Onimine. I mean, sorry, we were discussing the structure of a federal state and how the peculiarity of Nigeria. And you're saying that is also the burden of the federal government to help them look into revenue. So what would the state, what are the roles of the government in the states anyway? It is their responsibility, isn't it?
There's a big problem because constitutional review is also going to be on the table for that. It's around the exclusive and the concurrent list. That will be on the table. The second part is that most of the state governments can't jumpstart their economies on their own. They don't have the revenues, and they would not even have to be able to seed fund some of the ideas that they have. Also, we also need to change the incentive paradigm. For example, company income tax is shared on the basis of population. You can go and bring a big company in and cite them in your corridor. You only earn payee. You don't get any benefit from the company income tax. Those are the kind of things that the country has to sit down How do we incentivize productivity at the state level? That has to be on the table. For
Wow.
the states that are serious, the federal government must be able to support them, be able to jumpstart those ventures. And that's the only way we can take a long-term view to this.
Digesting your reports, two of them actually, the state of the states and also the other report you released that is talking about the patterns of their expenditure. It does look like there is a bigger problem ahead if things are not done right. Now, in terms of generating income, there's a delay in rainfall, which some of the states that have gone into agriculture might fear that might be drop in output or in harvest, and also security situation is another added problem. But major of the problems that you identify is the wage bill on some of these states is more than they can chew. But to close the program tonight, Mr. Onigbinde, on a final note, without having to scare anyone, which of these states, or maybe 1 to 5 of them, is in dire situation? Perhaps workers in those states or the government of those states need to know that they need to do something urgent. Which of these 5 states, Mr. Onigbinde?
Wow, you're asking me on the spot, but I would put a check on Osun. I will look in Ekiti. I will look at Ebonyi. I will look at Plateau. I will worry about Kogi. I will worry about Zamfara. I will worry about those 5 states mainly. I also worry about Abia. I also worry significantly, which we should not worry about Bayelsa, just because it's 163 billion as recurrent expenditure. It's outrageous for a state with that size, with that population. Most of the core northern states run a very, very low recurrent profile. And so with the little revenue they have, they can still push by it. So those will be my few picks of states that we need to pay extreme attention to if push comes to shove. But we also not should not forget that state government don't exist to pay salaries alone. You should also be able to deliver capital investment that can scale the country. So we also, beyond us looking at recurrent side, we should also be able to start checking how much are state investing in the capital expenditure. Thank you.
This is a very important conversation because a lot of the times we focus on the national, the federal, without having to look at the federating units, which are also important elements in our national life. Thank you, Mr. Onigbinde, for your insights today. And at least our viewers can get a lesson tonight that their states need to buckle up. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
That's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Akimale. Bye-bye.